Really? That cayenne got me. I wanna show you how to make your own DIY jerk seasoning. This comes together really easily. It's a lot of common spices you probably already have or can pick up easily from the grocery store. Now, funny enough, finding good quality jerk seasonings are a little bit difficult to find, and I love making my own spice blends because then you can customize it to your own flavor profile. So yes, you can buy these powders, but a lot of times they're not very accessible. You can't find really good ones. So instead of searching for a good jerk seasoning, you can just make your own with some really simple ingredients. The star of the show in mini jerk seasoning is allspice. So we're going to go heavy. This is our primary flavor. Usually when you're making a spice blend, you'll have your primary flavors, your primary spices, your secondary spices, and then your finishing spices. So, maybe a hint of this in the background. So we're building flavor here, building layers of flavor instead of just putting equal amounts of everything. So 2 teaspoons of allspice. Now allspice may taste like a variety of spices, but it's really just one spice. Little allspice berries ground up. Now, of course, you could start with whole spices, use a spice grinder, but we're taking the shortcut easy version. It's a time-saving factor. It's not really a sacrifice in quality. We're gonna get a lot of flavor, but make it easy on ourselves by using ground spices. Next, nutmeg. A common characteristic of jerk spice, jerk seasoning is really warm, toasty spices. Nutmeg, so delicious. A little bit of cinnamon. Now the great thing about these spice blends, you don't have to be super specific. I'm doing a little heaping teaspoon. If a little extra falls in there, that's totally fine. Doing clove, I'm gonna go light on the clove. Clove tends to be overpowering, especially in higher amounts, so I'm gonna go about a half teaspoon here. Just a little bit of clove in there. You can omit the clove too. The general spices are that allspice, the nutmeg, cinnamon, little clove in the background. Jerk usually involves a variety of herbs as well, so we're going with thyme here, 2 teaspoons. Is that necessary? I always do that. When I have a spoon, I'm like it's part of the recipe, it helps. You gotta ding the spoon on the side. Adds flavor. Some ground ginger. There are many different forms of jerk. You have jerk marinades, paste, powdered, seasoning blends, just like we're making here. So jerk comes in many different varieties, and just like any recipe from any culture, you're gonna get a lot of variations between different restaurants, different families, different ways you've had it. Everybody has their own blend. So this is my little variation, my little concoction. Garlic powder. Now this is the spice blend, of course, spice version. We're using dry, shelf-stable spices. You can use these same flavors. In the wet versions will just be the whole ingredients. So you'd use these dried spices like your nutmeg, your cinnamon, your allspice, but then you could use some fresh thyme, you could use some fresh ginger, fresh garlic, fresh onions, put that in a blender, blend it up. Then you have your wet jerk, your jerk marinade. Onion powder, boop. And rounding it out with good old pepper, just some black pepper. I like a finer grind on black pepper for jerk seasoning. You can do a coarse ground black pepper, just grind a few twists and turns in here, but this will just incorporate a little bit better. Now, jerk is very famous for its spice, usually using Scotch bonnet or habanero peppers. The first time I made a wet jerk with Scotch bonnet peppers, which were actually a little difficult to find when I made it years and years ago. Habaneros tend to be a little bit easier to find, but anyways, I was not aware of their potency. It was dangerous. It was very hot. So the spice level of your jerk can depend on your preference. You can omit something like a cayenne pepper, or you can add it in, and I'm clearly going over, but I like spicy, so we're just gonna hit it. There we go. So you can omit the spice altogether. It's a little less jerk if it's not spicy. So I would add just a little bit. You want a little warmness. You want a little bit of that heat. Is warmness a word? Warmness is a word. Just gonna give this a mix, but we're not done yet. Jerk has this classic look. It's kind of dark brown. Some jerk seasonings incorporate paprika or chili powders. It's not quite traditional, so they're gonna be a little bit more of that chili forward flavor. I like those dark toasty spices like allspice, clove, and cinnamon. If you are starting with whole spices and grinding them, I would give them a little toast first. Love toasting spices before I use them. And you can grind it up, mix the rest of your ingredients in there, and then you'll have a really delicious jerk powder. So we're not quite down yet. We're gonna add a few more things in here. Here's the world's largest brown sugar container. Since we are working with a lot of spices, we want to balance that, so a little brown sugar. The wet versions of jerk may have a little molasses, a little honey in them, a little regular sugar, so this takes care of a little bit of that molasses flavor and sugar. So if you don't have brown sugar, I wouldn't add molasses in this, but you could just use white sugar. Actually, what you could do is you make your own brown sugar. Just mix some sugar and molasses together, and then you could put it in there. So yes, you can. You just had to think through that a little bit. That brown sugar will give us some sweetness, and a classic characteristic of jerk when you cook with it is it gets charred and dark and brown. That brown sugar will caramelize and char and create that dark color. Last but not least, a good dose of salt. When it comes to jerk spice, I usually use it as an all-purpose seasoning, so I put the salt in it. A lot of my spice blends, I like to leave the salt out so I can control it, but with this, it's usually throw it on your meat, your vegetables, and it's ready to go. I did put cayenne, right? No, I forgot to put cayenne. I like spicy, so we're just gonna hit it. Oh, just kidding, I like it spicy. I'm trying to make it spicier. Now you want to break up the clumps a little bit here. I feel like we can sometimes get stuck in those ruts using the same flavors, you know, traditional salt, pepper, garlic, or maybe you're doing a lot of Tex-Mex cooking, Italian flavors. Jerk is kind of not too common. You usually have to go out of your way to find really good Caribbean food, Jamaican food, so you can bring that home, bring in a new flavor into your cooking routine. And the great thing about a spice mix like this is you can really adapt it to anything. So if you're grilling chicken, just put this spice on it. You'll have a different flavor profile. Seafood it's great on, and vegetables too. So it's a great way to introduce a new flavor profile into your routine by simply mixing up some spices you may not use in combination all the time together. Now I love giving things a taste. Even when you're making your own custom spice blend, smell it and taste it so you know how it is. See if you need a little bit more of an ingredient, if you want more garlic, onion, if you want more spice. Really, that cayenne got me. But it's the balance between the salt, the sweet, those warm spices, the kick of that cayenne, that all blends so perfectly well together. And it's something a little unexpected, you know, a little bit of that clove, the allspice. It's something that you just don't have every day, so it makes it taste really special, even though it's just some common ingredients just mixed together. While you can make a wet jerk with fresh ingredients, what I tend to do is just make a jerk paste out of a little bit of this jerk seasoning. Get 2 good tablespoons in there. A little bit of olive oil, probably equal amounts, about 2 tablespoons, maybe a little less. I tend to never measure. Measuring is like my weak point. I'm like, my measurements are glugs and sprinkles, a dash of this, a dash of that. Some apple cider vinegar, you could use white vinegar, or even some lime juice would be great as an acid component. That's what you need in just about any recipe, some acid, some fat, some salt, some sweetness, so we have all that in our jerk marinade. We have some fat from the olive oil, sweetness from that brown sugar, spice, savoriness. So what I do is mix this up, turn our dry ingredients, our dry spice blend, that's shelf stable, turn it into a wet jerk marinade. I usually get a basting brush, baste this on shrimp on a grill, or just add this to a skillet, add this to some roasted vegetables. And that's how easy it is to turn your dry jerk spice mix into a jerk oil that you can put on any meat, any protein, seafood, vegetables, roast them up, grill them up, saute it up. Delicious flavor. Jerk inspired seasoning that you can whip up in your kitchen from your spice cabinet, pretty easy. This is a great way to add a new dimension to the flavors in your kitchen.